we were just going out for a mate's 21st birthday, one of the boys, and the driver was just driving too fast for the road conditions at the time. It was pouring down with rain, and he's come around the corner and lost control and gone over an embankment, and we hit a couple of trees and a fence, and as a result of hitting that tree, I was crushed. The roof came down, hit me on the back of the head, cocooned me in a really small space in the back, and somewhere during that time I was told, I guess, that I was a quadriplegic and I was never going to walk again.
You're listening to Against All Odds, my face-to-face discussions with everyday people who inspire. All right, welcome to the show. Today I have four-time Paralympian, two-time gold medalist, your favourite and my friend, Ryan Scott. How are you, brother?
Good, mate. How you doing?
Good to see you, man. Hey, listen, I wanted to talk about how you became a quadriplegic, a little bit about where you grew up and how we first met, and also wanted to get you on the show because you inspire me every day, you know, in the way that you've overcome your adversity. Wanted to tell you how proud I am to know you and to have called you a friend for so long. You know, you were the little kid in our group, and you were the one that got the Sports Illustrated article that I always wanted. So, mate, anyway, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. No, that means a lot coming from you, and yeah, really appreciate it. Been friends for a while, and still remember that time growing up. First time I met you, mate. That weird little kid across the street looking over the fence, and
Me.
Yeah, you. And yeah, me and my brother were playing, mate. Next minute, you're at the front door knocking on it, and yeah, I've been friends ever since. Been cool.
Asking if I could come play. That's how I make friends. I just turn up and ask if I can play. So, mate, I wanted to bring you on and talk about, you know, your life journey a little bit, but mostly how you dealt with everything that you've dealt with and how you've overcome that, and won gold for Australia and really succeeded in becoming, you know, a decent human being.
Thanks, mate.
So why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about the night of your accident? Because I'd left home and you were 16 at the time, right?
Yeah.
I was a couple of years older than you growing up. You were the baby of the group, as I said, and I heard about it via the boys, and I was super, super gutted for you. I was off playing football and following my dreams, but I could see, you know, yours were going to change.
Yeah. We were just going out for a mate's 21st birthday, one of the boys, and we were going down to Victor, and the driver was just driving too fast for the road conditions at the time. It was pouring down with rain, and he's come around the corner and lost control and gone over an embankment, and we hit a couple of trees and a fence, and as a result of hitting that tree, I was crushed. The roof came down, hit me on the back of the head, cocooned me in a really small space in the back, and yeah, I was pinned there for a few hours. The other boys were able to get out from their position, and went up to the road and waited for the other couple of cars that we were travelling with to come past, and these were before the mobile phones, and so I had to get in one of those cars and go call the emergency services and my house.
So I had to get to the nearest house and borrow their phone.
Yeah.
Mate, were you conscious this whole time?
Yeah. So apparently I was conscious, and I was talking and probably saying a few things, you know, get me out of the car and all those kind of things, as you can imagine. And yeah, so my brother had got the call, and my parents weren't home. It was my dad's birthday, so they were celebrating that. And he got down to the accident scene where I was still trapped in the car, and I'd been pinned in that position for over 2 hours, and the country fire service guys were cutting me out, and they just told my brother that I was going to be okay, but they were going to have to send me off to hospital. And he went home and called my parents and told them what was going on. And during that time, I was airlifted to the Royal Adelaide, and by the time my parents got there, I'd already been sent into operation. And
what were you getting done?
So I broke my neck at C5, 6, and 7, and they were fusing my neck and trying to piece all the bones back together, and just basically damage control in terms of the spinal cord injury.
And so your parents arrive?
Yeah, and look, that was probably one of the hardest things for me to think about and talk about now, is that by the choices that I'd made, you know, my parents had to go through that, to be told that, you know, it didn't look like I was going to live, and if I did, I was never going to walk again. And, you know, I think if any of us think about, you know, our parents hearing that, it'd be pretty hard.
Not just them, but yourself. What did they tell you?
So I can't exactly remember at the time. Like, I was conscious throughout the whole first week, but heavily medicated. Once they took me off the medication, I don't remember anything now. I was fully conscious of the accident and aware of everything, but yeah, just it's all gone now. So, which is probably a good thing. But so somewhere during that time, I was told, I guess, that I was a quadriplegic and I was never going to walk again. And so it was there somewhere. But.
So, mate, quadriplegia for you, what does that mean in terms of movement? And because there's some guys that are quadriplegic that can't move anything below their neck, you know, they can only move their mouth and things like that. You have a little more range. Can you explain to listeners what that means for you?
So as a quadriplegic, it means you've got all 4 limbs affected, and I don't have any movement of my fingers. My triceps are paralyzed, and I'm paralyzed from my chest down. So I've got fairly good shoulder function, biceps, and some wrist movement, and that's about it.
Because you're a pretty big boy, you're over 6 foot.
Yeah. So
function-wise, you got no finger movement, but I've seen you grip stuff like with your hands and things.
Yeah. So they basically just teach you different ways to work with what you've got, and I've just been able to manage and learn different ways. So yeah.
So, mate, does that mean you're completely paralysed from the waist down? Because when you were younger, I know you were quite a little stud.
No, not exactly. So it's all just blood flow, mate. So the blood still flows, so it's all good.
Oh, it's still good. Cool. Man, what are your first thoughts and memories from when you realised you weren't going to be able to move again or walk again?
Yeah, I guess my I was, I was feeling just happy to be alive. I think, it was a pretty tough time, but it could have been just so different that, I just remember just being happy to be alive and being able to see my parents and my brother and my family again. And from everything I was told, that I was pretty lucky. So yeah, it was one of those things. And I guess it took me to lose practically everything before I appreciated what I actually had.
How did life look for the first, couple of years coming back from hospital after you obviously spent some time rehab in there? And what is that, just in traction for a little while till you can get some movement, or?
No, I was lucky with the neck fusion. It heals pretty quick. So I was in hospital for 5 weeks and then sent to rehab. And, at 16, I was under the impression that I was going to go to rehab and everything was going to be fixed and I was going to go home and just live a normal life. But I remember on my first day, I met a girl who had been in a chair for 7 years, and that's when it hit me. I realised that I was going to spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. And during that time in rehab, it was where I had to learn everything again. And you basically broke down to an infant level with loss of function of my hands. I had to learn how to feed myself and, brush my teeth, go to the toilet, dress myself, everything I had to learn, everything that I guess I took for granted at 16, I had to learn how to do again.
And what's the time frame on that?
So that was 6 months, but I probably didn't learn a lot of things for, 2, 3, 4 years after. And I guess I'm still learning how to do different things now. They can only guide you in that rehab center because everybody's injury is different and everybody's body makeup's different. So people have to learn how to do things different ways.
Okay. So you went on to represent Australia in a wheelchair rugby. I refer most people that don't know about it as Murderball. I just say, go watch the movie Murderball. And that's what he does. He's the man. He's the captain of Australia and he wins gold in that sport. How did you get into that sport? And sort of what drove you to compete in that sport?
Well, I was lucky that the South Australian team were training at the rehab centre that I was in, and it was quite a difficult time. There's so much focus on all the things that you can't do and you're reminded on a day-to-day basis. And then, I'd always grown up playing sport. So when I'd seen wheelchair rugby and found out I was eligible for it, I jumped in and it completely changed my life. I was able to finally focus on the things that I could do rather than sit around and worry about all the things that I'd lost and couldn't do. So I was the guys who were in SA were training for for Sydney, and the Australian captain was part of that, Steve Porter, and so I had a great start to my career, I guess, with three Australian representatives, the captain, and I was thrown into it. They trained really hard and great role models for me. So that was the only way I knew, was to work hard and you'll get the rewards.
So when did you first represent Australia?
So in 2001, I went to New Zealand with the Australian team and represented Australia in the Oceania Championships, which was to qualify for the World Champs in Sweden in 2002, the next year. And we went there and got a bronze medal. And I was hooked by that stage. I'd quit school and just started dedicating my life to wheelchair rugby and getting to travel the world and starting to see the rewards from it.
So you do get those rewards when you train hard in that sport, I guess. So is that government funded? And
at that point, it wasn't. It probably we didn't receive any funding till up until 2009. So I played for a lot of years just for the love of it, and it wouldn't change anything. It was I was just so driven and motivated to play that sport.
You got a pretty good friendship with a bloke named Riley. Tell us a little bit about that.
No, well, I was lucky enough when Riley first started. He was about 15, and I think he's probably 14, and went to his first Paralympics in Athens. We both went to our first in Athens, and he was 15 then when he went, and I was 22, and so we've known each other for quite a while now. And he's someone you just can't begrudge. He's so humble and so talented at what he does, and he's always one to recognise the other players around him, and I've never seen anybody so talented in what they do as Riley.
So, Rhino, your most recent gold medal, Paralympic gold medal, was played, what time was it? About 3 a.m. here, I think. Yeah. I was yelling my ass off, raising the roof in my house and waking up everybody. It was an exciting game, man. Tell us a little bit about winning gold for your country.
Oh, it was an unbelievable feeling. By now I should be able to put it in better words, but it's
because that was your second one, right?
It was, yeah. We won gold in London, and it had a very different feel. We were a very dominant team, but we knew the world had the rugby world had caught up and had developed new players and new lineups, and so had we. It's just the way the game has progressed, and we knew going there that every game was going to be tough, and we played overtime games, and just leading up to it, there was games that we were lucky to, not lucky, but we worked hard to win, and the final was pitched against America, and we'd never beaten America at a major event, and there was lots of talk going around that we'd never would have won gold in London and gold at World Championships if we'd faced America, and we were aware of that, and we'd worked hard on the things that were costing us those games against America, and we were aware of it, and I think we were much more mature in our performance, and that was definitely like players like Riley who, you can teach old dogs new tricks, and he became an even better player, which credit to him, even within the space of the 5 days leading up to it, he became an even better player.
And walk the listeners through the excitement and the feel of the last, I don't know, minute, I reckon it was, because you guys had it, then you lost it, then you had it, then you lost it, then it went to overtime, then you had it, then it went to overtime again. And so just the last minute, what was going through your head as Australian captain? Well,
it was like you said, it was tight at first, second, and third quarter, and at the end of that, towards the end of that fourth quarter, we had it, and we went up by 3, I think, and then next minute, the Americans had come back, and it was tied. So put into overtime, and overtime's a very strategic kind of thing in wheelchair rugby. You got 40 seconds to score, so if you lose the tip off at the start of the game, the team who wins it has got advantage, and we lost that first tip off. So it was, we just knew that we had to try and push it back into another overtime if we couldn't get a turnover. You've only got 3 minutes in overtime. So, and that's what we did. We were lucky enough to push it another overtime, and we focused around that of just keeping the guys calm. We've been in positions before where America have rallied and come back, and we normally just, we normally crumble a little bit. And as I said, it was a much more mature performance from the guys. And we concentrated on winning that tip-off, and from there we were able to control the game.
So you didn't falter, and you got that medal.
Yeah.
That's good, man. It was awesome. I tell you what, I was nearly in tears. I was jumping around, excited. It was awesome. Awesome to see. Mate, you don't get much support, I thought, from not just the public, because not many people know about your sport, okay? But I mean, even the association, I was texting what I thought was the governing body, and it was going through to the coach. I found out later, asking for merchandise. I was on board. I wanted to buy a shirt. I wanted to buy a jersey. I wanted to represent my mate, essentially. What's the go with that?
Yeah, it's progressing since I started it. As an athlete, you look at it and go, yeah, look, we're moving in the right direction. There's still a long way to go, and we've got some great athletes now who are willing to do those things and put themselves out there. I think we spoke about it's a very Aussie thing to kind of play things down a little bit, or be try and be humble and
not self-promote.
Yeah, and now we've got the right guys who are willing to do it, and yeah, I'm sure some people probably think they're a little bit arrogant, but from an athlete who's there and who's not willing to do it, they're great for our sport, and I can recognise that. And yeah, we're becoming more mainstream. And come Tokyo, it's going to be a lot closer to our time zone, and I think we'll see a lot more of Paralympic sport on primetime TV.
And are you going to make that game?
We'll have to see. We've got World Champs next year, and that's my goal at the moment. And we've got a lot of young kids trying to take my spot.
You're gunning for that game?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. I haven't given up on it yet.
You heard it here against all odds. Australian wheelchair world champion comes back.
We'll see. Hopefully.
Captain.
I can't let go at the moment.
Right, so have you still got the captaincy or not?
No, I've taken this year off. I've had a few shoulder issues over the last year and a half, and trying to take the year to get my body right. And yeah.
Okay, cool. Mate, you must have had an incredible support network after your accident growing up. I don't know what it was like before, or I do know what it was like beforehand, but you know what I mean? You must have really come to the fray after your accident. Tell me a little bit about that support network and how you got through all that.
Yeah. My parents have always been great people, and have always looked out for me and my brothers, and they were great after my accident. My dad changed his job and was stacking shelves at Big W just to be around home a little bit more, and took a huge pay cut. And my relationship with my closest brother, Steve, was, it was normal, typical brothers. I was the younger, annoying brother who wouldn't leave him alone and always wanted to do things he was doing. And then, after the accident, it was, we become best mates, and we still are. And he's massive in my life, and has played a huge part in, just helping me, and whether it's keeping me sane or, whatever, we just bounce off each other. And it's great. It's one of the things that I am grateful for the accident, that it just brought us all so much closer together.
Brought your family closer together.
Mm.
You said kept you sane. Was there times when you suffered from depression, or I know there's times when people have accidents where they can't use limbs and things. There's talk of suicide and mental issues in that regard. Was there anything like that came for you?
Not so much. Like as I mentioned earlier, I was just so grateful to be alive and to be around my family. I probably felt like I hurt them enough. There was times, yeah, I'm not going to lie, it was hard, and the thought came into your head, but I just thought the pain that I would put the people around me through again, I felt like I'd already put them through enough. And
so how did you feel that you put them through that pain?
I was making those choices. Look, I think it's easy to.
So you've spoken about choices a couple of times. What sort of choices were you making? What are you meaning?
So look, I was a bit of a follower, I guess. So I was always looking up to people, and started drinking and smoking and doing those things at quite a young age. And, my parents had warned me about it, and I just never listened, and they were always trying to ground me, and I'd whinge and moan, and they'd let me out again. And then, there was a small car accident I was in and walked away, and very cliche, but I felt bulletproof after it. And
so there was another car accident.
Yeah, it was just a small one. Me and my mate were just driving along, and he didn't see a car coming towards us and went to turn in front of it and clipped it. And yeah, there was just a little bit of damage under the car. So, just walked away, and there was nothing of it. And then the teacher brought in a local guy. He'd to our class because she'd hear all the things we were talking about on Monday morning, and he'd crashed his car, killed his girlfriend, and ended up with severe brain injuries. And I remember just not being able to relate to him and thinking, that kind of sucks to be you, but it'll never happen to me. And so all the warning signs were there. I'd kind of dodged a few bullets and got away with a few things, and then it happened. And I'm sure if the accident didn't happen, I probably never would have reflected on those things. But when it does, you look back and just go, why didn't I listen to any of those things? And maybe it was my fault. I made those wrong choices. Those choices were there, and I made them.
So you spoke about support networks and things when you were after your accident, immediately after your accident, in regards to your family, some of your friends and your brother especially, coming through for you and being a real rock for you at that younger age. How do you go now? What's your support network look like now?
Obviously my family are still there and play a huge part in my life. And I've got my partner Sissy, and she's great. She's amazing. It's been great to be able to meet someone who is able to look past, I guess, the chair or the disability, and we get on for our interests outside of just generally in life. And we've been together now for a little while, and looking at building our first house together, and in October we're expecting our first baby. So
bullshit.
I thought it'd be cool to tell you on here like that.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thanks, mate.
Oh, you prick. That's cool, man. October.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm a bit speechless, but I don't know what to say, man. Aside from Odell's a good name. Oh, mate, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, cheers, mate. I've been putting this podcast off for a little while, and Odell, I think he's just been wondering why I've been giving him the runaround a bit. But I've been wanting to wait till it got to that safe point to tell him as well. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to tell you on here, mate.
Well, it has been. You heard it here first, listeners. We've had adversity and now kids. It's awesome, dude. Do you know what you're expecting?
No, not yet. But look, we're both just really stoked. It's like I said, she's been an amazing part of my life, and we're really looking forward to starting a family, and really, really looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome. And everyone, your parents obviously know.
Yeah.
You're a fucker. So, mate, you've surprised me with an announcement of a baby. I've surprised you with my announcement of how proud I am of you. So, mate, what do you miss the most?
Probably the independence, really. Just being able to, be fully independent in life, and just go and do the things that you want to do when you want to do them, and not be restricted by, I guess, your disability. And that's probably the thing that I definitely miss the most. There's the obvious things, the surfing, and things that I can't do the way I used to do them. But yeah, it'd definitely have to be the independence and relying on others.
You're going to be a father shortly. If you could go back and tell yourself or change anything about your life back in the day, what would it be? Or what would you say?
I'd definitely try and go back and give myself the confidence that I needed. Growing up, I guess I was worried a little bit about, other people, what they thought, or, my trying to portray a certain image. And, I definitely didn't grow up with the confidence that you had or that you have now. And, I think that was something that I definitely needed a little bit more of, was that self-confidence and be a leader rather than have to worry about following all the time.
And do you think the outcome would be different?
Oh, look, I'd like to think it would be. You just never know. I've actually thought about that quite a lot and wonder, if you knew what you knew now. And I think you hear people say it all the time, regardless of what situation they were, that,
Because I think a lot of that was the environment you're in.
Yeah.
And the people you're around in regards to the confidence you had to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, I think so. And, I was the youngest of three boys, and I guess I had I felt like I had to follow a similar footpath to them, or, and like I said, I always just felt like I had to portray a certain image, and it probably wasn't the correct image of actually who I was.
So, mate, besides captaining Australia and playing football all around the world, or rugby, wheelchair rugby, what are you doing with yourself?
I've been involved with some public speaking and mainly focused on road safety stuff and directed towards teenage kids who are in a similar position which I was in.
So it's like that guy that came and had to talk to you.
That I didn't listen to. Yeah.
That you didn't listen to. So what are you doing to connect with them?
Well, I'm telling them. I'm admitting that, my mistakes. I'm telling them I was in their position and that I ignored all the warning signs, and, they were right there in front of me, and there I am today, and I'm hoping that you guys are smarter than I am, or more confident in a position where you guys can, leave today, or leave that presentation with the ability to make those right choices.
And how's that going? You've had much feedback?
Yeah. I've been in public places where kids have come up, and especially when I was involved in Adelaide, and they'll talk and they'll come up to me and they'll say, we drive that road every weekend to go surfing, and, it makes us think every time we go down that road of what your story was, and to make those right choices. And that means a lot. There's times where you leave a class and you think they were just full of 16-year-old me's and they didn't listen to a word you said. And then someone comes up to you and they say that at the end of the presentation, and it makes you realize that, you are making a difference.
That's good. Perfect. I'd like you to finish with any advice you've got for any listeners.
Yeah. I don't end up in the same position where I was, where you're looking back and you're regretting stuff. Whether it's your family, your job, don't wait till you lose everything to appreciate what you have got.
So, Rhino, where can people find out about you or send you messages of support in regards to the sport you play, or, just to say thank you for your story?
So to support the Australian wheelchair rugby team, there's the Facebook page, Australian Steelers. And, we'd love to hear your support leading into Tokyo and the World Championships next year in Sydney. On a personal note, if people want to contact me, whether it's for corporate events or a road safety presentation, at the moment. So if you can get in contact with Odell, and he'll be able to pass on my details.
Thanks for coming in, brother.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Cool, brother. Thank you.
Right on.
Right on. Thanks for listening to that episode of Ryan. Please rate it on your podcast player. The show grows by you guys sharing it. So if you can, and you know someone that might benefit from it, just pass it on to them. If you have any feedback or have any questions, probably the best place to contact me is via Instagram @SenseiOdell. Of course, the other channels are the website www.againstallodds.com, and that's spelled with an ODZ. But as I said, probably the easiest way to contact me is via Instagram @SenseiOdell. At the moment, we're running on a fortnightly episode basis, so stay tuned to episode 10, which is with yours truly. As always, stay humble, stay kind, stay smiling. Odds out. Okay, we're recording. Hello, listeners. Today I'm here with 4-time Paralympian, 2-time gold medalist, a kid I grew up with, Ryan Scott. How are you, brother?
Good, thanks, mate. Happy to be here. Is that you?
That's you, man.
What?
That's you. That's not me.
Fuck.
Phone's on silent, bruh. Phone's on silent.